AI is exciting, but for many organizations, it's a complicated situation. Pressure from upper management and competitors to get AI right, trying to keep pace with all these LLM innovations, concerns over security, privacy, and data leakage, cost overruns, and uncertain business returns are just a few of the challenges that organizations face in implementing a comprehensive AI strategy. NVIDIA CEO Jensen Huang posits that there's $1 trillion of general purpose infrastructure that needs to be replaced and accelerated over the next several years. And given the other concerns that we just mentioned, wrestling with your hybrid AI infrastructure deployments is the last thing organizations need. Hello and welcome to AI Ready Platform, made possible by Nutanix, where we dig into how Nutanix and its partners plan to simplify AI and help organizations achieve desired business outcomes. I'm your host, Dave Vellante, and we're joined by three great guests: Mandy Dhaliwal, who's the Chief Marketing Officer at Nutanix; Thomas Cornely, who's the Senior Vice President for Product Management at Nutanix; and Bob Parker, SVP at IDC, Industry, Software, and Services Research. Folks, welcome. It's great to have you on the program. Thank you for your time.
Great to be here.
Nice to be here.
So we just heard a short take from industry professionals on how they're thinking about enterprise AI. Mandy, I wonder if you could start us off. What can you add to that narrative that we just heard?
Yeah, Dave, it's fundamentally changing the way we operate and do business. There's no doubt anymore. AI is a C-suite and boardroom priority. 59% of companies that we talked to in our recent research believe it is going to change the way they operate fundamentally. And also, most interestingly, over 49%, so almost half of the folks that we've talked to recently, say they've already got a workforce productivity plan in place leveraging AI. So it's moving very quickly.
Yeah, we love the data, and of course, Bob, that's what you guys are all about at IDC. We're 2 years into the AI herd around the world, I like to call it. How does IDC see the challenges that some of these practitioners face and the evolution of AI adoption generally?
Sure, thanks, Dave. Yeah, I kind of remember when I first used ChatGPT. My AI experience goes back to grad school, so I had very low expectations. But when I used it, my response was, wow, it works. And when I talk to people, they have a similar experience. So what we saw was it really captured the imagination 2 years ago of companies. And what we're seeing is the average company has about 37 proof of concepts as of the midpoint this year, but only 5 of those go to production. And then only about 2/3 of those are considered successful. So what we're seeing is this AI scramble, is the way I would characterize it today, but we're moving to a pivot where people are looking at multiple use case strategies that Mandy mentioned over a set time period. And I really think the foundation is being laid. It's multi-method, so it's enterprise AI. It's not just Gen AI. It's narrow AI coming together with Gen AI. It's multimodal. It's structured, unstructured, data streaming. It is multi-model. So I want multiple models depending on what the use case is. And it's multi-cloud, as I need to deploy it at the edge and in the cloud and in the data center. So it's very early days, but we are seeing, to Mandy's point, this emergence of an AI pivot towards a much more comprehensive enterprise AI strategy.
So thank you for that. So Mandy, what Bob just laid out means it's more complicated. And I was talking to a head of innovation at a large bank recently, and he did a little take on Mark Zuckerberg. He said, we have to move fast, but we can't break things versus move fast and break things. So when you talk to senior execs and C-level folks, what do they want to get from AI? Can you bottom line it for us?
Yeah, I think they don't want to be left behind, ultimately. Right? There's a lot of pressure, there's a lot of hype, but ultimately there's some really great game-changing technology. That's my word of the day. Right. And it's fundamentally changing how we operate across businesses at the departmental level and also from a financial performance perspective. It can't be ignored.
Right. It's going to change industries. And I think the executives are thinking about, just like economies of scale back in the Industrial Revolution, people are thinking about economies of intelligence in this new world. So definitely a board level topic.
You know, it's interesting, Mandy, you're right, it can't be left behind, but it's interesting that, I don't know, around 20, 25%, somewhere in there, say they're still not leaning into Gen AI. So on the adoption front, Bob, do you have any relevant data points you can share on that topic?
Well, I think the adoption, I rarely talk to anybody who's not doing something. So it's really a matter of what their relative maturity is in terms of what they're doing. And I talked about that a little bit with only a certain number actually getting to production. But what we're seeing now is people, we think about like superfoods, they're super use cases, right? Superfoods are high in nutrients and they promote overall health and antioxidants. So we're looking at use cases that have robust business outcomes, represent resiliency, and promote overall company health. So, and what we're seeing in terms of adoption is people going away from what I was talking about before in the scramble, these individual proof of concepts, and more into clusters of use cases. So if I have a model that gets at customer demand, that feeds a model that maybe does inventory optimization, which feeds a model that does cash flow, right? So we're starting to connect the dots together. And I think that's what will really accelerate adoption within the enterprise.
Yeah, that makes sense, Bob. I mean, initially you had this bevy of use cases that came in and they were maybe disconnected. So I like how you sort of suggested that they're sort of identifying ways in which they can get better operating leverage out of those use cases that they're going to deploy. But Thomas, let's bring you into the conversation. I'd like to ask you, as somebody that's responsible for creating products that address some of the concerns that customers are laying out there, what are the top issues that you hear in your customer conversations?
Yeah, I mean, Dave, it's kind of interesting to listen to Mandy and Bob, right? Because as you can see, expectations run very high, right, on what AI is going to do and how it's going to go change pretty much everything in terms of how our customers do business. But the reality, when you get back to the actual technology, is still early. Okay, the technology is moving very fast, and as we see, Bob made a comment, it don't run to customers not doing anything, but a lot of them are doing a lot of experimentation. Right? What's interesting when you talk about enterprise AI is all of this actually turns around data and content. It talks about business workflows. It talks about things that are very proprietary to companies. And so that brings up concerns, and that's really what we hear first around privacy, security, compliance. If I'm going to be doing something with this data, how do I keep it secure? Who can access it? Once I get something in the model, who can actually access that model now? Because that model reflects my own priority information. Good technology, moving fast, you get complexity. It is just hard to go and keep up with things. And that brings a big topic around enterprise AI, which is around talent. Not everybody's a Google, not everybody's an OpenAI. You can go and actually invest billions of dollars to go and build up teams of data scientists. So, how do you go and really balance the two is a big topic for our customers. As a result, it's kind of natural to see them lead to start experimenting in the cloud. And we see that pretty much everywhere in the cloud. And particularly with this new crop of, AI-based services, you can solve complexity. Very complex pricing schemes in the cloud, very hard to actually get a sense of, what your cost is going to be in the long run. So, okay to do things, at small scale. Actually, even there, we see customers come back very quickly thinking, look, I need to go and basically come back here because that first build was just a big shock, right? So then you want to go and start to do things on premises, get more control. When it comes to on-premises and enterprise AI, the biggest question we hear is, where do I start?
Right, and Mandy, to your earlier point, I mean, you got to lean in. You can't sit on your hands and wait. There is a lot of experimentation going on. The cloud is great for experimentation, but to your earlier point, we got to move forward. Anything you want to add to what we just heard from Thomas?
Yeah, we obviously work very closely with analysts like Bob, and we're all, addressing this as we move very quickly. But the other side of this is we're getting started, but over 30% of these projects are slated to fail in the next 18 months because there's some fundamental issues, right? Data quality being one of them, inadequate risk controls across the enterprise to actually absorb AI, escalating costs, as Thomas had mentioned, and also unclear business value, right? There's a lot of tinkering happening, which is good, but how do you justify ROI on that? So really what we're seeing across the conversations that we're having, people are really unsure about how to start and where to start. And they also question whether their infrastructure is actually ready for this. Is it up to task? And then, as Thomas mentioned, the skills gap, right? We've got some big catch up to do on that front.
Yeah, but so Bob, a lot of issues there. Mandy mentioned data quality, fuzzy ROI. We're not at the point where these Gen AI projects are paying for themselves. They're not self-funding yet, but maybe we're getting close. Anything you want to add to this sort of topic?
Well, I think I can reinforce Mandy's comments from our own research. The top 4 reasons for failure are a lack of skills available to the company. And that sort of shines a light on the importance of choosing the right set of technology partners, because you're not going to have those skills internally. So it really takes an ecosystem to be successful. There are excessive costs is the second most cited reason, inadequate infrastructure being third. And fourth is a lack of coordination between IT and line of business, which I think is really evident in some of those proof of concepts I talked about earlier, where the HR department just ran off and did something on their own, and it wasn't centrally coordinated between the tech folks at the company and the people trying to do it. So as I was saying before, we really need to bring these together in clustered use cases so that we can magnify the value and get the ROI. But at the same time, we need to be able to manage the costs of operating those use cases.
Thank you for that, Bob. So Thomas, the application stack is evolving. It's becoming sort of AI-ified, if you will. We've mentioned a number of challenges. You don't focus on the entire stack. You provide value to a component of it. In your view, what are the first principles in terms of how you're approaching solving some of the challenges that we just talked about? The talent gaps, the data quality, the unclear value, the complexity of multi-clouds, multimodal. Where do you guys fit?
Yeah. So this is, to us, right, when you basically had the ChatGPT discovery, right, and just that massive change to what's going to happen, it reminded us of a lot of things that we saw with cloud initially, right? And this is a topic that, you kind of see this echo in the discussions with customers, right? You have concerns around privacy, around control, around cost. And we live to this, to the wave of cloud first, right? Customers basically going, cloud is the answer to everything, right? You go and you experiment, and then you find out, well, there's a number of things that are great, but actually the world eventually became hybrid, right? And we're now in a big hybrid multi-cloud motion. So unfortunately, it's been the foundation of our success over the last few years, right? And, for us, as we kind of looked at the big change around generative AI, we just could see the same patterns coming out. And we could see, look, there's other things that we've been doing that are core to our company. Let's focus on simplicity, focus on user experience, focus on data and controlling your data, focus on giving you a platform to simply run your applications that to us were just a natural extension. We have those foundations. It just made sense. If you're going to go and need a platform that allows customers to go and run all their applications and manage their data anywhere, well, you have to do it for their AI-based applications and databases in the past, models and inference endpoints going forward. And so to us, a lot of things just became, it resonates, it just echoes, right? And we like to say history repeats itself in the case of IT. As we all know, some of us that have gray hair or no hair, it absolutely does, right? And it's a question of cycles, but the same problems just come back. And so there's a big need for enterprise customers to get the tooling to stand up those infrastructure platforms to support those new applications and those new efforts.
I agree. There are a lot of things that echo, but there's some things that are different. And Bob, I wonder if you could comment on that. So Thomas mentioned the whole cloud first, and we saw lift and shift. And lift and shift didn't really change the operating model. So people sort of said, some of those hard to move applications are probably better off on-prem. Now we hear things like AI native. But the difference that I would love for you to comment on is that The hybrid piece of this, or the on-prem piece of this, is I've got data on-prem that's my data. It's proprietary data that I can now apply AI to and deliver competitive advantage like never before. It's not public data. It's not, LLMs aren't trained on my private data, hopefully. So there are some things that are similar. There are some things that are different. Bob, how do you see it?
I think the deployments become very multi-tier. And what becomes key is this element of optionality. So do I have a choice on where I run it? One of the things I like about the Nutanix offer is the Kubernetes platform travels well, right? So I can deploy multi-tier. And you're absolutely right, Dave. People, it's almost a cost control effort and not just a data protection effort to maybe run something in the data center or on the edge because it's a fixed cost. But what people are learning pretty quickly is that it is different perhaps than hybrid cloud, but it's still a hybrid. And what I want is I want choice of where I deploy and how I go about that. Part of it is controlling the cost, part of it is protecting the data. So I think that notion of simplicity, security, control, and choice are all the keywords, if you will, as people are making choices about where to run these applications.
So Thomas, very exciting time. Since the summer of 2022, interest rates started steadily rising. The COVID tech bubble started to unravel. Since then, Nutanix has made really remarkable progress. It's quadrupled its market value. And today you're making a very substantive announcement, which to me anyway, marks the beginning of a new era for the company. What is the solution that you're announcing for enterprise AI, and how specifically does it address the challenges that we've been discussing here today?
Yeah, so actually, if you go back a bit more than a year ago, we announced something that we called GPT in a box, which really was a solution, right? Meant to be an enterprise first solution, infrastructure for on-premises deployments. And what that allowed us to do is that we work with customers very early on and start to see what they were missing in terms of standing up that AI-ready infrastructure, right? And what started as a solution has now turned into product-specific offering, right? And so this new offering, Nutanix Enterprise AI, the acronym is NAI to be very short, really is software that you can deploy on any Kubernetes platform. Now, what that software does specifically, and give you that AI-ready infrastructure, allows you to go and set up secure inference endpoints, bring your own models, actually automate, simply bringing a model from NVIDIA, from Hugging Face, potentially have your own fine-tuned model and make that available to your data center. So it is, true to what we've done historically is work with the people running infrastructure and give them the software that allows them to go and better serve the application developers. All right. And again, doing all this, the massive amount of optionality, because now you can use this software on premises as part of GPT in a box, or in the cloud, in your own VPC, on your favorite cloud Kubernetes service. We get customers right now doing POCs on EKS, in AWS, and the value for them is, I'm in the cloud, I have access to anything I can potentially want to use in the cloud, but for my core key assets, I know I can keep them in my VPC. It changes the way you think about consuming the service, because now you're just consuming software, not a service. So that pricing is very predictable, it's very transparent. So we've done a lot of things here to make it very simple for customers to get that foundation component for that AI-ready infrastructure, allowing them to go and run this anywhere and giving them direct access to all of their data. You can do this in the cloud, you can do this in your core data center, but really what we're going to start seeing more is doing it, at the edge, where you actually have, that edge data that you want to go actually do inference on.
So I'm hearing optionality, you can run anywhere, you can bring your own model. I'm hearing simplified, developer friendly, and perhaps more transparent. I'm interested in how different this is from other on-prem offerings and other cloud offerings. You kind of mentioned it's software, it's not just a service, so you can sort of have more predictable pricing. But I wonder if you could sort of talk about the differentiation in specific terms relative to other on-prem offerings and relative to cloud offerings.
Absolutely. I mean, look, and as I said at the beginning, right, this is a very fast-moving space, all right? But if you look at where we are right now, what we're bringing to the market is quite unique, all right? This is the only offering that you can actually go deploy on premises that gives you literally a point-and-click interface to go and stand up your infrastructure, deliver models to your data scientists, secure access to these models, and do that in a way that you can then basically do your day-to operations, which is what we're known for. In the cloud, you get access to services. So all of this is done for you. You don't get to control what is actually happening behind the curtain. And the pricing for this gets quite convoluted. And so you get back into those cost, security, control questions. When you go to on-premises, what we're seeing from other solution providers right now, and again, this would be like application-centric Kubernetes platforms. We call it a bag of tools. You have a lot of components. There's lots of things that are there for you to go and build your own, but it's up to you to go and figure out how to assemble them. And then you're back to the question that we called out at the beginning, which is people don't know where to start. It's not enough to give me a set of components. Where's the blueprint? Who does what? How do I do this for my own application? And again, this skill gap basically points out, give me something that actually allows me to go actually meet the needs of my developers, my data scientists, as the ready-to-use infrastructure. And that's, again, this is what we've been delivering. And this is currently quite unique. We've been in early access now for a few months, and the feedback has been fantastic from customers. And again, very often just exceeding the expectations of, what they could get through just simple, easy-to-use interfaces.
Yeah, do CFOs want you to pay their IT departments to roll your own or do it yourself, or do they want an out-of-the-box solution? I wonder, Bob, we'd love to have the independent analyst on because you bring a perspective. I wonder if you could share your thoughts around what I'll call the strategic fit of what Nutanix is presenting here with respect to some of the challenges that we've been discussing today. Do you have any insight into use cases that are going to really drive business value? How do you see the alignment with what Nutanix is announcing and what the market needs?
Well, again, I think it comes back to that optionality, and I do think Nutanix is already skating to where the puck is going. To use a sports analogy, I apologize for that, but I really think that what we hear from folks in terms of the challenges they have in deploying use cases, this addresses that need for, I think of it as sort of a platform, if you will, an environment that allows me to innovate within, right? So that's what people want. People want, and one of the things we haven't talked about is the introduction of agents into workflows, which are going to become so prevalent. There's going to be assistants and advisors and super agents and multi-agent systems. So you need an environment that removes complexity, assures security, gives you an element of control over the data and the activity, and again, provides an element of choice as to where it runs. So yeah, I think it's like I said, advanced. As Thomas said, it's a fast moving space. So the competitive set, I'm sure, is not sitting on their hands either. But it's a very good advancement in terms of some of the issues we're seeing amongst the tech buyers.
And Mandy, I feel like I've been ignoring you here. Let's bring you back into the conversation. We've been talking earlier, we've talked about use cases. We've talked about co-pilots. Bob just mentioned agents, a very new, exciting area that everybody's talking about now. Fraud detection keeps getting better and better. We've talked about setting up, private versions of transformers, private chat GPTs, if you will, as an example. How do you see Nutanix simplifying the deployment of these types of applications and use cases, Mandy?
Well, as a matter of fact, we drink our own champagne around here, Dave. And sorry for the wine metaphor, but appropriate, I think, given who I am. But really what it breaks down into is, GPTs that we've been using in-house. So we've hardened some of this and also experienced from the lens of the customer how to go about the implementation and the rollout of generative AI technologies. So we have a support GPT, we have a sales GPT, we have an engineering GPT, and the use cases are all around speed to response and accuracy for customer-facing roles, business process alignment around the revenue operations side, automation of repeatable tasks from an engineering perspective, i.e. creation of unit tests. So we're finding ways to make ourselves better with the technology. So we can also be a resource in the industry, right? We're a technology provider, but we're also a trusted advisor for our customers.
I love that, the champagne, sometimes we call it dog fooding. CMOs don't like that term, but so we'll go with champagne. But Thomas, as you well know, it takes, as client zero, customer zero, you've got to refine that, and it's great that you guys can participate in that evolution. Anything you can add to that, that whole notion of simplification?
Yeah, by the way, I mean, as a Frenchman, champagne is definitely, a better choice of words, I put it this way, in terms of the energy. On what we're doing, I think the key, and we've said this a couple of times, I think with Bob, right, is it's still early, right? We got a lot of experimentation going on, and for us, it's very key to learn with our customers. And what better way to go and learn with our own internal users? So our own internal data scientists, who, trust me, do not want to deal with infrastructure. They don't want to know about Kubernetes, right? But they want to be able to go and get access to environments that allow them to go and actually try out things and build new applications. They're the ones directly hammering the systems and giving us feedback. I want to be able to go do this, and then you can start seeing patterns. And as a product person, of course, the technologies that we can go provide, they become the foundation for a solution. But you're not delivering bespoke solutions every time. You actually want to be able to go see common patterns of how things get done and then build products around them. And that's why we started around inference endpoints. This is something that is a key foundation piece of any Gen AI application, right? Which actually has a lot of complexities around performance, scaling, monitoring, operating this at scale. And this is what we've been focusing on solving first. And then we're going to keep on extending as we kind of see more patterns emerge, right? As we see new use cases, but then as we see repeated ways of solving those use cases, then we'll focus and we'll extend the product.
And it's great that Nutanix is trying this out on itself internally, but we also have a few customer proof points. So I want to take a moment to listen to some of those proof points, and we can come back and discuss. Please play the reel. All right, thank you. Mandy, bring us to a close. Maybe you could summarize the most important takeaway for our audience today.
Yeah, thanks, Dave. I think, from a business leader lens, what we're doing here is democratizing generative AI, right, across the enterprise. And I think this is a really important technology that's going to unify IT and the line of business. And that's what we're driving towards, and also addressing the skills gap. Right, we've got IT admins that we are about to spin up to give them the capability to become AI admins, because there simply are not enough skilled workers out there. So, we've taken the very thoughtful approach that's in line with who we are as far as our architecture, as providing, freedom, flexibility, choice, all of the things that customers value, location as well. And so really, this is a platform and an offering today that we've announced that really ultimately gives the ability for folks to run fast and actually go deliver results. That's how I think about it.
Yeah, thank you. That cloud operating model is something that is now sort of really ubiquitous, and it's something that Nutanix has always been a pioneer in that regard, bringing that to any location. So I really want to thank Mandy, Thomas, and Bob. Excellent discussion. Really appreciate your time.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
You bet. All right, keep it right there as we dig into how Nutanix and NVIDIA are partnering to simplify AI deployments. Don't go away.